Hello math lovers and math needers! Welcome to Dominion Math and Science channel. Today we are tackling a classic question that has puzzled many. Why can't we divide by zero? Buckle up, because we are about to break this down step by step. First, we will use a practical example to see why dividing by zero makes no sense in the real world. And then we will approach this question from a purely mathematical perspective to demonstrate that dividing by zero is logically impossible. Let's start with a practical example and imagine we have a 500-liter barrel that we need to fill using different sized containers, scooping up water from a nearby pond. First, let's use a 25-liter bucket. How many buckets do we need? That's an easy math. We need to divide 500 by 25 and it gives us, right, 20. So 20 buckets are needed. What if we use a smaller container? For example, let's try filling our barrel with a tiny teaspoon. A teaspoon holds just 5 milliliters or 5/1000ths of a liter. Let's do division again. 500 divided by 5/1000ths, it's a whopping 100,000 teaspoons. If it takes 1 minute to go to the pond and back, then it will take us 100,000 minutes to fill the barrel. If you were to treat that like a full-time job, working 8 hours a day, you'd be clocking in for about 208 working days. That is assuming a 5-day work week is roughly a year's worth of work. It's a huge chunk of time. Clearly, as we use smaller and smaller containers, the number of times we need to fill the barrel increases. Now, what if we try to use an empty bucket? That is a bucket with 0 liters. Then we need to divide 500 by 0. How many trips to the pond do we need to make with empty bucket to fill up our barrel? How many times does 0 fit into 500? Well, let's think. If I try filling the barrel each time with absolutely nothing, how many times do I need to do that to fill it? Exactly. It makes no sense. No matter how many times I pour nothing into the barrel, it never fills up. That's why dividing by zero in the real world cannot be done. Next, we will approach this mathematically. But before we do that, if you're enjoying this video so far, go ahead and hit that like button. It really helps the channel out and will help more people to see videos like this one. And please subscribe not to miss new videos. Now, let's approach our question mathematically. When we divide A by B, what are we actually doing? We are looking for a number, let's call it n, such that n times b equals a. For example, when we divided 500 by 25, we found 20 because 20 times 25 equals 500. Simple, right? But what happens when you try to divide by zero? That means we need to find a number n such that n times 0 equals our original number a. But any number times 0 is always 0. No number can satisfy this equation unless a itself is 0. And we will talk about this situation when a is 0 in a minute. That's why division by zero is impossible. When we try to, we realize that there is no answer, no number that can satisfy what we mean by division. It doesn't give us a meaningful result. Now, what about dividing 0 by 0? That's a tricky one. Using the same logic, we need to find a number n such that n times 0 equals 0. It may seem that such number is easy to find, but there is one problem. Any number times 0 equals 0. So n could be 1, 5, 100, or even a million, and the equation still holds. This means there isn't just one number, but an infinite number of possible answers. Math doesn't like this kind of ambiguity. That's why we say 0 divided by 0 is indeterminate. It doesn't have a single, well-defined answer. When 0 tries to divide by itself, something weird happens. Usually, when we divide a number by itself, we get 1, and that is the only correct answer. But with 0, it is different. Because every number times 0 is still 0, there is no single correct answer. Any number will work. It is just a whole crowd of them shouting at once. This confusion breaks the rules of math. So to keep things from falling into chaos, math decided that 0 divided by 0 is also forbidden. It is too wild to be allowed. As a summary, 0 doesn't play nice when it tries to live below the fraction bar. It makes no sense in the real world, and it causes chaos in the world of numbers. Think of the bottom of a fraction as a foundation of a building. When 0 moves in, that foundation vanishes, and the whole structure collapses. Math laws had no choice but to banish 0 from the denominator forever, because dividing by it doesn't give a sensible answer. It breaks the rules of reality and it leads to impossible results. So, 0 was kicked out of the underworld of fractions, never to return. I hope that clears things up. And now you understand why dividing by 0 is impossible. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more math and science content. Thanks for watching Dominion Math and Science, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care!